History books tell us that Napoleon's 1812 Russian campaign was defeated by General Winter. Freezing cold, snowstorms, and the Russians burning everything as they retreated. But this is only the end of the story, and to be honest, it is the least tragic part. Because the Grande Armée, that great army, had begun to die long before the first snowflake fell on Moscow. A colossal military machine of 600,000 men internally rotted away due to one of the biggest logistical and biological catastrophes history has ever seen. Today, we will examine the anatomy of this collapse, not the war itself. We will discuss why 300,000 horses died, how green corn turned into a poison, and how modern science revealed what the soldiers ate on that day from their bones. Welcome to Napoleon's mistake, biological collapse. Napoleon said, "An army marches on its stomach." But he forgot one thing. Those carrying the army's burden must also eat. When the Grande Armée crossed the Russian border, it had approximately 300,000 horses. Cavalry, artillery batteries, and most importantly, the logistical horses pulling thousands of wagons carrying the army's food. The problem was that the planning was done mathematically, while biological realities were ignored. Analyses show that even a lean unit of just 19,200 soldiers and their animals needed 68 tons of food and forage per day. Napoleon's army was many times that amount. And then the disaster began. June 1812, months before winter. However, Russia's agricultural cycle was not as the French had expected. As supply trains lagged behind, dry feed for the horses became unavailable. The starving animals were forced to attack the unripe crops, which we call green corn, and grass soaked by the rain in the fields. This change in diet was fatal. Unripe grains fermented in the horses' stomachs. Combined with heavy summer rains and muddy roads, a massive wave of colic began in the army. Albrecht Adam, a civilian painter serving in Prince Eugene's corps at the time, made horrifying notes in his diary. He documented that exactly 1,200 horse carcasses were counted on a single road leading to Vilna. The horses were dying in droves, not from war, but from the wrong fuel, that is, from wrong nutrition. So, why did the death of horses bring about the end of an empire? Because the ripple effect of this biological failure turned into a tactical paralysis. Napoleon was an artillery officer. His doctrine of war was based on the rapid movement of cannons. But when the horses meant to pull them died, those terrifying cannons turned into mere piles of wood. Worse still, the cavalry. The cavalry were the eyes of the army in the 19th century. They performed reconnaissance and reported the enemy's location. When the horses died or became sick, the Grande Armée was blinded. They could not see where the Russians were retreating or when they would attack. For example, in the Battle of Krasnoy, the French were completely defenseless against the Russian forces due to the lack of weapons and horses. The fastest army of its time was now a clumsy, blind, and hungry giant. Logistics had become static. An army that cannot move is doomed to be annihilated. While horses were dying of colic, another biological threat awaited the soldiers: typhus. Malnutrition had collapsed their immune systems. Crowded marching columns and lack of hygiene created a perfect environment for lice to spread. The majority of soldiers who died during the Russian campaign were killed not by Russian bullets, but by the typhus microbe carried by lice. This was the failure of the human components of the logistical engine as well. Biology was defeating strategy. What we have discussed so far were the records of historians. But what about science? In the early 2000s, massive mass graves belonging to Napoleon's retreating army were found in Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania. Modern scientists applied stable isotope analysis to these bones. The results were fascinating. The carbon and nitrogen values in the soldiers' bones proved the army's multinational structure. C3 plants, i.e. wheat, barley, were dominant in the diets of Northern European soldiers, while traces of C4 plants, such as millet, corn, were seen in Southern European soldiers, Italians, Portuguese. Why is this important? Because Napoleon's logistical system was designed for a uniform army. But trying to feed hundreds of thousands of people whose biology, eating habits, and resilience were completely different from a single center and with the same standards, that was the recipe for disaster. The 1812 campaign teaches us this: wars are not won only on maps. Any plan that does not respect biological limits, metabolic needs, and logistical realities, no matter how genius the commander who made it, is destined to collapse. It wasn't the Russian winter that defeated Napoleon. It was the starving horses, microscopic lice, and an insatiable biological engine that defeated him. Thank you for watching. See you in the other unseen details of history. Goodbye.